Multitasking can be a virtue, but swapping between your instruments constantly can take you out of your flow. The ability to set up multiple different instruments on just one intuitive keyboard is a great way to keep yourself in the zone. Plus, it just makes arranging a lot easier. Lumatone is a dream for this. In fact, there is already a preset for it. So let's dive into its multi-timbral powers. Hey again folks, it's Dave, and today we are going over a super useful trick made possible by the Lumatone. I've already done videos on the first two presets that come shipped with your Lumatone, and now it's time to see what that third preset's all about. Essentially, it takes preset 1, the Bosanquet-Wilson layout, and repeats it 6 times vertically down the board, and intuitively color codes it so it's ready to be linked up to different instruments on different MIDI channels. On those old dual keyboard organs, they used to call these manuals. So Lumatone's bringing that back, but this time we have 6. You know, with all this right in front of you, this type of layout can transform you into a writing and arranging performance powerhouse. Okay, so to do this, each virtual instrument or synth you're gonna use should be set up to be received on its own different MIDI channel. Obviously, you could go about setting up your Lumatone to have multiple channels in an infinite amount of ways, but I love the way they went and did it with preset 3. So let's just start by having a look at how they laid it out. Okay, so I've got preset 3 pulled up in the editor software here. And again, if this looks at all foreign to you, you can go back and check out my video that goes over all the ins and outs of how this software works. All right, so this is how it looks. As we can see, it's taken the Bosanquet-Wilson layout and given a different pair of colors that represent the naturals and the sharps for each different MIDI channel. Just looking at the pattern of the different blue shades here, with the lighter blue representing the naturals and the darker blue representing the sharps, we see they're all assigned to MIDI channel 1. The top note representing MIDI channels, and this bottom note is representing the MIDI note number. As we move across the sections, you'll notice that the MIDI channel remains 1, and we start to ascend up in octaves with the MIDI note numbers increasing as we go across the board. Notice that the same pattern repeats for different MIDI channels, with channel 2 represented by the 2 shades of pink, channel 3 represented by the white and bluish greeny turquoisey color here, and channel 5 is represented by these 2 different shades of green. These MIDI notes naturally lay themselves out in a way that increase as you move vertically down the board. So lower registered instruments would fit well on channel 1, with more mid-rangey instruments on channel 2 and 3, and your higher register instruments could be on channel 5. So that accounts for 4 different MIDI channels, but what about the other 2? Well, to best utilize space, the remaining keys are partial manuals, and they can be found at the very top and at the very bottom. These work great for controlling non-chromatic instruments like drums or samples, or even setting a bank of them to act as continuous controllers that control filter cutoff, pitch, and a lot more. Okay, so how can we put this to use by assigning different instruments to it? For this example, I'll stick to Kontakt, as it's a really great engine for setting up a bunch of different instruments at once. So once you got Kontakt open here, you can start building your instrumental palette. We'll start with a lower register instrument on MIDI channel 1. Maybe let's try to get a string ensemble going. Let's go with some low swelling strings from Spitfire's Oliver Arnald's collection here. And here's where we want to assign our MIDI channel number. By default, it's already on 1, which is where we want it to be. All right, for MIDI channel 2, I'll fill out those lower register swells with some higher register swells, and you can see it's gone to MIDI channel 2. Okay, let's get some lead instruments on this thing. Let's get a cello on MIDI channel 3, and we'll go with a violin on MIDI channel 5. And you can see by default it's put it on 4, so we'll switch that to 5. And now that will be designated to the green keys. All right, let's see how this all works together. Now, you can see how mixing and matching can start to create all kinds of different combinations. And you certainly don't have to stick to an orchestral style of music. Let's try an array of different sounds while making use of those partial manuals to maybe trigger some drums or samples. So yeah, let's make use of that top partial manual here to trigger a drum loop. We use outputs X loops here. We'll assign that to MIDI channel 4, and within Contact here, we'll pull up another instance of that, and we'll assign some cymbals maybe to MIDI channel 6, and that'll put them down at the bottom with the red keys. Okay, let's get some synths on this thing. To do this, we'll do it outside of Contact. We're just gonna make sure that we assign that MIDI channel to the actual track itself. Maybe let's get a bass on channel 1 here. Let's go with Arturia's Buchla for that. Love this thing. And we'll be sure to assign our track to MIDI channel 1. And let's get ourselves an arpeggiating synth. Maybe using the classic Oberheim here. We'll be sure to assign that to MIDI channel 2. The synth arp is going to be on the pink keys. And let's get a synth pad on channel 3. Let's use the emulator. And finally, for a lead line, let's get a nice mono synth using the soft synth Surge, which by the way is free, people. It is free. There's no reason why you shouldn't have it in your DAW right now. But let's go ahead and get that on channel 5. And our lead line is now assigned to the green keys. Okay, we've made our salad. Let's see how it tastes. So this is just a couple of examples of how this can make use of all 280 keys in a really powerful way. A lot of times I like to just have this, set up in front of me before I start composing something. It's a really great way to inspire writing and arranging, with the unlimited amount of combinations. Even if you're not planning on using all those instruments at once, it's just really handy to have all those sounds just sitting there waiting to be tickled. And you could set up multiple presets that represent different arrangements that are common to your process. Just pull them up with a smack of a button. But as always, we seem to be only scratching the surface with this instrument. So be sure to hit like and subscribe to keep seeing what this baby has to offer. We'll see you soon, and thanks for watching.